Oh God, oh God, oh God. Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the first episode of Ask Brad, where y'all send me questions and I try to answer as many as I can in a single video. Again, if you want to submit questions for next week for me to answer next week, what we're going to do is I need you to put Ask Brad in the subject so I can search by Ask Brad. If you don't put it in the subject, your question might be missed. Also, go ahead and put your name or whatever you want to be referred to in the email so I know what to call you. I'm using a lot of first names this time. So other than that, let me get started. I'm going to try to answer as many video game related questions as I can in this one video. There is a lot. I'm going to do them in the order of that they were sent in. Okay, cool. Cameron says, all right, Brad, just a question. How'd y'all meet each other? I don't have time to answer that now, but we have answered that many times before. There's probably a clip of it. I recommend maybe asking some of the other people in the comments where you can find a link to that information, because we answered it a million times. Mike says, hey, Omni Slasher from the chat and forums. I'm a Tekken fan, and I know you are too, and I was wondering if you checked out Tekken Hybrid, more specifically Tekken Tag 2 Prologue, and if so, what are your thoughts on it? Yada, yada. Oh, also, Tekken Tag 2 is at UFO in Austin, which is an arcade here, a local arcade. Yes, I used to be a huge Tekken fan in college. I used to play competitively. Used to be pretty good back in the tag days, the original tag. I'm excited about Hybrid. The reason I'm not excited about Hybrid is because, one, Tekken Tag 2 Prologue is only a demo with four characters. Most of them I don't care about. Pretty much all of those I don't really care about. I'm kind of interested in Link because I used to play her back in the day, but I don't care about any of the Mishimas, and I don't care about Alyssa, so that's not a driving factor. Also, Tekken Tag 2, Tekken Tag 1, while it's in HD, there's no online play, so there's really no point because I don't know anybody locally who really wants to play me in Tekken. And the movie I don't really care about, okay? And I'm probably not going to head down to UFO to play because they have their dollar machines, and I'm kind of out. I don't play competitively, and only good people play there. Equinoxinator asks a question about Skyrim. He says, since Skyrim has recently been released, is there anything you like or dislike that they chose to do with this one? I pretty much like everything about Skyrim. I wish that some of the deeper stuff from Morrowind was back. Like, I wish you could fly and jump high, but I understand that they took that away because they sealed off, the cities with loading screens, and you can't really have people jumping into cities that aren't fully loaded in or flying into cities that aren't fully loaded in. I also wish magic crafting was back because I really like being able to create your own spells, especially as deep as you could get in Morrowind. Also asked, what do you expect to see in the next entry? I don't know. It's hard to say what I want from Elder Scrolls. I want it to be, as polished as it's getting, but just deeper. He says, any gameplay mechanics from Skyrim that you'd like to see in the new Fallout? Well, in general, I prefer Elder Scrolls. I would just like to see some of the depth, like the character customization depth that you could put into an Elder Scrolls character in Fallout. I feel like when I play the Fallout games, the kind of loot that you get, the weapons and the bullets and the skills that you get, it's all kind of samey. I don't feel like, while in Elder Scrolls I can play one character that's completely different from another character. I just want more depth in character customization, really. Yes, a couple other questions, but let's try to keep it down to one question, guys. Dan 49 asks, what is your favorite Final Fantasy game and why? Final Fantasy Tactics is my favorite game of all time. I just love strategy RPGs, especially, the depth of customization in that game I really loved, and, the job class system, the skill point system, everything about it I love. As far as mainline games, Final Fantasy 6 is my favorite. Conviction 775 says, with the release of... He asked another question about Tekken Tag 2 again, whether I'm going to get back into it. I don't really... If I'm going to play Tekken, I'm going to... since I used to play competitively, I can only really play a certain way, and I don't want to play it casually. And since I know I don't have the time to dedicate to get good at the game like I used to, I tend to not bother. And at least that's how I was with Tekken, 4 or 5, 5 and 6. And it's probably going to be the same thing with Tekken Tag 2. Let's see. David says, hey man, hope all is well. This is also Soul Mason from chat. He says He has a question about Kingdoms of Amalur. He says, how do you predict the Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning? How do you predict the game will do once it's released, especially after Dark Souls and Skyrim's release? At this moment, how do you personally feel about the game? Excited, indifferent? I don't think the game's going to do well. It's a new unknown IP. It's got a strange name. It kind of looks like Fable at a first glance, which I don't think a lot of people are digging. Now, personally, I'm excited about it. It's lead designer is the guy who worked on Morrowind and Oblivion, was lead designer on those games, which I love. So I think the game has a good chance to have a lot of like RPG depth to it. It's positioned as like an Elder Scrolls game meets like God of War. If that, I guess the output means it kind of looks like Fable, but again, I think that's only what it looks like. I'm actually kind of excited about it. I've seen it a couple of times at trade shows, and I think it could be pretty good. I think it might surprise a lot of people. Meaning, I think it could have a pretty good critical response if it is what I think it is. It might come out of nowhere. It might be a sleeper hit, is what I'm trying to say. Brian B. Scout 304 in chat says, my question for you is, what aspects of Dragon Age Origins and Dragon Age 2 do you hope are kept, changed, or disposed of in the future with Dragon Age 3? Also, is there something new that you would like to see included in the game, either story-related, gameplay, mechanics-related? Kind of a big question. I love Dragon Age Origins. It's my favorite game of that year. Dragon Age 2, not so much. I think a lot of the problems with Dragon Age 2 were from, it's shorter development time, even though it did have some like good stuff in it. Like the characters were still really good. Some of the story arcs, like with the Canary, were still really good. And some of the mechanic improvements were smart. Like they sped up a lot of the interface things. Like for example, compare throwing a fireball in Dragon Age Origins versus Dragon Age 2. They definitely put thought into speeding up the interface. I just wish. And like some of the skill tree depth was better than it was on the first one as well. I just sort of hope they combine with what worked with Dragon Age 1 and combined with what worked in Dragon Age 2 and sort of just spend more time with the game. And the big problem with Dragon Age 2 was that you spent the entire game fighting in the same areas in the same city, and that was just a real bummer. But I guess the main thing I would like to see is to sort of go back to, or sort of take a lesson from like Elder Scrolls and focus on making more of a big seamless world. Because I felt like, especially Dragon Age 2, there like every single area was separated and small and blocked off with loading screens. I had a hard time becoming attached to like the city of Kirkwall, for example, because it was so disjointed. Spend more time like making a nice, well-made, seamless environment, and I think it could improve dramatically. Austin says, aka Uranium Bullet from chat, he says, I was wondering, would I prefer the next Fallout game to take, where would I like the new Fallout game to take place at? New York City, Los Angeles, in a different country, or an entirely new miscellaneous area? I don't really know. I mean, Wasteland looks like Wasteland, kind of no matter where you place it. And honestly, I don't think New Vegas felt all that different from the Capital Wasteland in Fallout 3. So, how about make a new Elder Scrolls game instead? Sorry, don't kill me. Mark says, hey Brad, I was wondering if you would consider giving the game Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines a chance. The mechanics are a lot like Deus Ex, and it's a fantastic game. It is bugged at the time of release, but it runs perfectly now. Yes, I know, I agree. I have the game. I've played the game. I've not played a lot of the game. It is something I want to do. It's something I'm dying to do after finally catching up with the original Deus Ex this year. Or playing a substantial amount of it this year, finally. I do want to spend more time with Vampire the Masquerade. The only reason I haven't is because, look at the release calendar. It's huge. Everything and their brother came out, and I don't have time for it right now, but I will eventually get around to it, hopefully early next year. SSA316 in chat says, hey, Brad, have you ever played the Valkyrie Profile games? If so, what are your thoughts on the series? I've played some of the first game, and I've owned the second game. I haven't started it. And I know there's that spinoff on the DS, the strategy RPG. It's a series I've always been curious about. It's one one of those PlayStation 1 RPGs that sort of eluded me. That sort of escaped my grasp at the time. And when I finally managed to obtain a copy, I just, like I said, I hadn't had the time or patience to go through it. It's one that I've always wanted to play more of. I'll get around to it someday. That's all I can really say. But I was a big JRPG guy back in the PlayStation 1 era. Just never got around to it. Lizzie says, generally, what are your thoughts on the ratio of time taken to complete an actual story of a game versus 100% completed gameplay? She has a little story about Arkham City and how she thought the story was a little too short. I don't know. I think it depends on the type of game. Like if it's an Elder Scrolls, for example, or I think the main storyline is really not the reason you just play that game. I definitely think the point is to like sort of branch out to experience everything. I don't know. I think it depends on the type of game that it is, and really depends on how much you're enjoying it. Some people like 100% like GTA. I just don't see the point in that, because I think you can get so much out of the game by just playing through the long ass main storyline. I don't know. It depends on the game. These days, I really don't have the time to 100% everything. The exceptions will be like a game that I'm like super into, like Tactics Ogre, which I will spend way more time than just the main storyline in a game like that. I'll grind for hours, or side quests for hours. Rion X Garland says, "What is your opinion on Alundra for the PS1? Is it good or bad? What's its weaknesses and strengths?" And yada yada yada. Alundra for the PlayStation 1, I have played that. It's an isometric Zelda game, like Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past, a Zelda type game, and it's really good. I guess I think it has a little more depth than one of those older Zelda games. Like you can get a variety of weapon types. It's also like very big, very long world, very long game, very big world. It does have some issues. Like I remember there's some like platforming stuff that's like really hard, like really painful. I remember this one room where I was jumping from pillar to pillar for hours because I kept falling off. It was so annoying. Also, the game's kind of hard. It's a lot more challenging than your average 2D Zelda game even. But I definitely still think it's worth going back to. It's a beautiful game, and if you're one of those guys that sort of never got over the 2D Zelda era, could never quite warm up to the 3D Zelda games as much, I would definitely go back and try Alundra. And I think it is on the PlayStation Network, so definitely pick that up. Eskilo says, "Hey Brad, have you ever played The Warriors? A really good beat 'em up game for Xbox and PS2. I have played, a few hours of The Warriors. I do think it's pretty cool. It's a game I would like to play more of, and one like Bully that I think they sort of really." One of those Rockstar games where I felt like they did a good job with like the melee combat, and then you see GTA and like Red Dead where it's like really stupid and like sluggish and lame. And I've always wished that, hey, you made these games like The Warriors and Bully that had good combat. Why don't you bring that into GTA? Why do you keep making it crappy in GTA? There's that. Dragon Dr. Gonzo too. Asks, since Atlas has announced a while back that they are currently working on a new Persona game, what are your thoughts on it, and what do you wish they'd improve on Persona 5 from the previous Persona games? Okay, this might piss some people off, but I really do not like Persona 3 and 4 all that much. There are parts of it that I love. I've played through a good portion of both games. I never finished them. What really bothers me is like the rigidity of like the calendar schedule. Like you could only do so much in a day. Like, oh, if I go hang out with this person, I can't study. Or if I go to the dungeon, I'm not going to be able to, read my book tonight or whatever, which I might need to do to increase this stat. Or I can't hang out with this guy. That really stresses me out. I don't like having a limited amount of time to do certain things. So that always sort of turned me off from the games. Also, so like if they can sort of, I know a lot of people would kill me, but like sort of get rid of that rigid structure. I really kind of hate it. Make it more freeform, and I can kind of do what I want when I want on my own time schedule, because that's sort of the reason that sort of those things are sort of kept me from finishing